Sartre's exposed truth. She wants you more when you don't want her. Have you ever noticed that strange paradox in attraction? That moment when someone who barely acknowledged your existence suddenly can't stop thinking about you. The very instant you stopped caring. It's not coincidence, it's not luck, and it's certainly not random. What if I told you that one of history's most brilliant philosophers uncovered this psychological truth decades ago? A truth so powerful that most dating coaches build entire careers on it without ever crediting the source. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist genius who revolutionized 20th century philosophy, exposed a fundamental truth about human desire that most people will never understand. She wants you more when you don't want her. But here's the uncomfortable reality. This insight isn't being shared widely. In fact, it's being actively suppressed. Why? Because understanding this dynamic gives you power. Power that disrupts a multi-billion-dollar industry built on keeping you dependent, needy, and perpetually searching for validation. Before I reveal Sartre's exact insights that will forever change how you view attraction, desire, and relationships, I need you to do something. Hit the like button right now. This simple action tells the algorithm that men still hunger for philosophical truth in an age of superficial dating advice. And ask yourself, why does this concept feel both familiar and forbidden? That tension you're feeling is the gap between what you've observed in real life and what you've been conditioned to believe. That gap is exactly what we're exploring today. The paradox of desire. Hell is other people. This might be Sartre's most famous quote, but it's also his most misunderstood. What Sartre was really saying is that hell exists in how we perceive ourselves through others' eyes, how we become objects in their world rather than subjects in our own. And nowhere is this more evident than in romantic attraction. In his masterwork, Being and Nothingness, Sartre introduces a concept that shatters conventional wisdom about attraction. He calls it the look, le regard, the moment when we become aware of being observed by another consciousness. When you desire someone intensely, you surrender your subjectivity. You become an object in their world, defined by their perception. Your existence, your value, your very sense of self becomes dependent on their validation. And in that moment of surrender, something profound happens. You become fundamentally unattractive to them. Why? Because desire doesn't flow toward dependency. Desire flows toward freedom. Think about it. When was the last time you felt intensely drawn to someone who needed you more than you needed them? When did you last feel that magnetic pull toward someone whose entire emotional state depended on your approval? The answer, if you're being honest, is never. At this point, you might be thinking, is he saying I should manipulate people by pretending not to care? No, I'm saying something far more profound and far more challenging to your current worldview. I'm saying that the entire framework you've been taught about attraction is fundamentally backward. I'm saying that the very act of pursuing desire destroys the conditions that create it. And I'm saying that Sartre understood this paradox with such clarity that his insights threaten the foundation of modern dating advice. This is why these ideas are suppressed. This is why they're labeled as toxic or manipulative. Because a man who understands the mechanism of desire becomes impossible to manipulate through his own desires. And that brings us to Sartre's most controversial insight of all. The freedom paradoxin. Existentialism is a humanism, Sartre makes a statement that seems almost cruel in its simplicity. Man is condemned to be free. What does this mean for attraction and desire? It means that at our core, we are drawn to what we cannot possess, control, or fully understand. We desire what maintains its freedom in the face of our desire. Consider the pattern you've likely experienced. 1. You meet someone and feel moderate interest. 2. They show intense interest in you. 3. Your interest mysteriously diminishes. 4. You withdraw your attention. Their desire for you suddenly intensifies. You find yourself newly intrigued by their renewed pursuit. This isn't a quirk of human psychology. It's the fundamental structure of desire itself. Sartre would explain it this way. When someone desires you intensely, they surrender their freedom to you. They become an object in your reality. And in doing so, they lose the very quality that made them desirable, their separate, sovereign existence. But when you withdraw your need for them, you reclaim your subjectivity. You exist independently of their perception. And paradoxically, this independent existence, this freedom, is precisely what ignites desire. The uncomfortable truth is that much of what you've been taught about relationships, attraction, and dating has been deliberately designed to keep you in a state of dependency and need. Why? Because a man defined by his needs is predictable, controllable, profitable. A man defined by his freedom is dangerous, not to women, but to systems that profit from his insecurity. If these insights are resonating with you, if you're beginning to see patterns in your own relationships that reflect these existential truths, then I need you to do two things right now. 1. Hit the like button to help this knowledge reach other men who need it. 2. Share in the comments. One relationship dynamic where you now recognize this principle at work. Your comment might be the exact insight another man needs to break free from his own patterns of dependency. Now, let's go deeper into what Sartre understood about the project of possession and why it always fails. The project of possession. Have you ever wondered why the moment you win someone over often marks the beginning of the end? Why the thrill of the chase is replaced by a strange emptiness once the chase is over? Sartre identified this phenomenon with brutal clarity in his analysis of what he called the project of possession. In Being and Nothingness, he writes, Love is in essence the project of making oneself be loved. But this project contains within it the seeds of its own destruction. When you pursue someone with the goal of possessing their desire, you create an impossible paradox. You want them to desire you freely because forced desire is worthless, yet you want to control and ensure that desire because uncertain desire is terrifying. This contradiction cannot be resolved. The moment you possess someone's desire, you destroy the conditions that created it. Think of relationships that began with intense passion but devolved into stifling codependency. The transition wasn't accidental, it was inevitable given the internal contradiction of the project of possession. This is why so many relationships follow a predictable pattern. 1. Initial freedom and mutual fascination. 2. Growing attempts to secure the other's desire. 3. Increasing demands for validation and reassurance. 4. Suffocation of the very freedom that created attraction. 5. Eventual death of desire or relationship. This cycle isn't a modern phenomenon. It's not the result of dating apps or changing gender norms. It's a pattern as old as human consciousness itself, one that Sartre identified with remarkable precision, and it's a pattern that benefits from your ignorance of its existence. The rare man Sartre never wrote a dating manual, but if he had, its central thesis would be this: the rare man who maintains his freedom in the face of desire becomes irresistible precisely because he refuses to make himself an object. This isn't about being aloof or emotionally unavailable. It's about something far more profound, maintaining your subjectivity, your existence as a being for itself rather than a being for others. In practical terms, this means 1. Your sense of value exists independently of others. Validation. 2. Your projects and purposes extend beyond the pursuit of desire. 3. Your emotional state isn't contingent on someone else's approval. 4. Your freedom remains intact, even within intimate connections. Modern society has a vested interest in preventing men from achieving this state. Why? Because men who define themselves through their own projects, rather than through others' perceptions, become remarkably difficult to influence through insecurity. This is why media, advertising, and even relationship advice constantly pull your attention back to what others think of you, how desirable you appear, how you measure up to impossible standards. It's not just selling products, it's maintaining a system where male identity remains externally defined and easily manipulated. This point you might be thinking, this sounds like it's encouraging men to be emotionally detached or manipulative, Nothing could be further from the truth. What Sartre advocated wasn't emotional withdrawal, it was authentic engagement from a position of freedom rather than need. Not game playing, but genuine self-possession. The man who understands these dynamics doesn't love less, he loves more authentically. He doesn't connect less, he connects without the distortion of need. And most importantly, he doesn't blame others for a dynamic that exists within the structure of consciousness itself. This is the crucial distinction that separates wisdom from resentment. And it's why these teachings have been systematically removed from modern discourse about attraction and relationships. Because a man who understands the mechanism of desire without resenting it becomes truly dangerous, not to women, but to systems of control. The practical applications, Sartre wasn't just a theorist. He lived his philosophy, maintaining a famously unconventional relationship with Simone de Beauvoir that lasted 51 years until his death, a relationship based on mutual freedom rather than possession. So how do we apply these existential insights in practical terms? First, we must recognize that the conventional approach to attraction is backward. Most men try to become what they think women want. They perform, they pursue, they place themselves in the position of object, hoping to be desired. Sartre would say this approach is doomed from the start. Instead, the existentialist approach to attraction flows from these principles. 1. Authentic purpose. Develop projects and purposes that extend beyond the pursuit of validation. When your primary project is your own authentic existence rather than being desired, you paradoxically become more desirable. 2. Radical responsibility. Take complete ownership of your emotional states rather than making them contingent on others' responses. The man who needs nothing from a specific interaction brings a rare freedom to it. 3. Comfort with uncertainty. Embrace the fundamental uncertainty of others' consciousness rather than seeking constant reassurance. The need for certainty in relationships suffocates the very freedom that ignites desire. 4. Non-possessive connection. Engage deeply without attempting to possess or control the other's freedom. The moment you try to secure desire, you destroy it. When you begin to embody these principles, something remarkable happens. You stop being interchangeable. You stop being one of the countless men performing the same predictable patterns of pursuit and validation seeking. You become, in Sartre's terms, a singular consciousness, unique not in your attributes, but in your relationship to your own freedom. And this singularity, this rarity, creates a gravitational pull that conventional attraction strategies can never achieve. This is why women want you more when you don't want them. Not because you're playing games or being manipulative, but because you're embodying the rarest quality in modern dating. A man who exists for himself rather than for others' perceptions. If you've stayed with me this far, you're already demonstrating the intellectual courage that Sartre valued above all virtues. Now I'm asking you to take 3 specific actions. 1. Like this video to ensure this knowledge reaches other men who need it. 2. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because we're just scratching the surface of philosophical insights that have been hidden from modern men. 3. Comment below with the single biggest realization you're taking away. From this video, remember, the systems that profit from your insecurity are counting on your silence. They're counting on you consuming this information passively and never sharing it. Prove them wrong. Sartre didn't write his philosophy as a dating strategy. He wrote it as a pathway to authentic existence in a world that constantly reduces us to objects. But the implications for attraction and desire are unavoidable. The man who maintains his subjectivity, his freedom, in the face of desire, becomes magnetic precisely because he refuses to surrender his existence to another's perception. This isn't about manipulation. It's about liberation, freedom from the endless cycle of seeking validation through others' desire. The choice before you now is the same choice that Sartre placed at the center of his philosophy. Will you continue to define yourself through others' perceptions? Or will you embrace the responsibility of defining yourself through your own authentic projects? Sartre made his choice. Now it's time to make yours. This isn't just about understanding women. It's about understanding the fundamental structure of human consciousness, a structure that once recognized can never again limit you in the same way. The path of the existentialist isn't easy, but as Sartre himself said, freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. Start doing. Start choosing. Start existing authentically. The freedom that creates irresistible attraction awaits.